Welcome back to Primal Expressions. In today's video, we're going to be talking about behaviour change, conditioning, and the very fine line between transformation and manipulation. Let's kick off with a phrase you've probably heard before. Repetition is the mother of skill. But we could probably argue it goes a little bit deeper than that. Repetition is the father of skill, and the emotional charge is its mother. Doesn't flow as well, but let's get into that. They say it takes over 10,000 hours or repetitions of a task or skill to achieve near mastery proficiency. But do we ever ask ourselves what will possess someone in the first place, emotionally, to invest hours or repetitions? It isn't just a discipline, it's the emotionally charged purpose. That charge is what ultimately fuels the repetition, because without it we pose the risk of just going through the motions. It's not uncommon when we have this emotional buy-in or investment for us to seek something or someone to facilitate this process. The hypnotherapist is recruited to use language techniques in order to improve suggestibility, to rewire habits and shift someone's state. Someone may employ the services of a coach or a mentor who sequences and periodizes the programs and repetitions and monitors the progress. Both of those two examples don't just rely on their techniques in the form of language or just the repetitions of the task. They seek to inspire and in the process trigger emotions, and that becomes the key to their success or their effectiveness. Because repetitions without that emotional charge can seem flat, but add the right emotion and you can get the transformation. In fact, you could probably argue the very sought after virtue in modernity of discipline is controlling the emotional wave and committing to the repetitions. And not just committing to the repetitions, but staying with the repetitions, particularly in the face of other emotions like boredom. This formula is used everywhere, from personal development, personal transformation, therapeutic practices, all the way to something like manipulation and mind control. Now let's talk about the dark arts. Everything we just covered in the last section, the mechanics and the techniques, if used ethically, is empowering. We choose to change. There is consent. You choose to change, you experience the growth. But in unethical hands, those same mechanisms become control. But instead of appealing to higher concepts and emotions like aspiration or inspiration, the root base of that emotion is often trauma. Lower vibrations like fear, physical, emotional pain, or perhaps just the threat of it. This is where it can easily transform into ritualistic forms of control or abuse. A patterned and repeated, emotionally charged method of control, designed not to build, but to break. Using fear in order to enforce compliance. Well, that could probably go on for video after video, topic after topic, perpetually, right? News, politics, all kinds of psyops. In 2020, everyone will remember very clear narratives that were brought out, and this idea that potentially you not wearing a mask, or you not washing your hands, or being close to anyone, that you would be complicit in the murdering of vulnerable people and your granny. It worked on the emotional charge of the idea that we could be involved in someone that we love or a stranger's death. Not purely for intention, but for our reckless non-compliance with any advisory guidance that was given at that time. The classic narcissist personality type that seeks to entrance and entrap and break down victims over time. The most common one at the moment is probably the P. Diddy case with Cassie. Those that are sitting on either side of the fence are arguing the idea that there was some consent involved in that lifestyle and some choices that were made, and the other side are sitting there proposing the idea that this form of control and this form of manipulation didn't just happen overnight, that it was sustained. And oftentimes those sitting on that side of the fence have experienced that themselves and understand the complexity that goes into controlling another person. That on the surface of it, very black and whitely, there is consent involved. However, to what extent is consent... Let's start that again. To what extent is consent there when there is some form of manipulation or some form of fear involved? It takes a great deal of courage to step out of that when that's going on. But it shows the power of emotionally charged sequencing of abuse, of fear, of control over days, over months, over years, and how that can grow. But let's look on the complete flip side of where the same model now can be used in a little bit more of an ethical way and a bit more of an empowering way. The concept to break in a man so that he can become a soldier. There's a transformation from the person to become what is known as a soldier, to enter the ranks of an establishment or a hierarchy that perhaps beforehand they wouldn't be able to facilitate in that current emotional and mental state, and even physical state. If someone chooses sobriety, if someone wants to lose weight, if someone wants to quit smoking or gain weight, build muscle, any form of human improvement or self-improvement, you know I don't like that word, but self-improvement, they are using the same model and technique. But whenever those outcomes are successful is when there's a constant commitment both to the repetition as well as that emotional charge. It's okay to say that you feel that you want to change your life, maybe pick your physical body, but it's hard to maintain that energy when you're confronted with the desire perhaps, or the emotional charge of seeing sweets or chocolate or something that can sabotage that progress. It's hard to want to go to the gym when it's raining. It's hard to want to go there when you don't feel like it. And these are the type of emotional battles that we have. But the most successful in that endeavor really do commit to this idea of using emotion to charge the repetition. And they're more likely to show up, and they're more likely to stay on the bandwagon, so to speak, because of that emotional investment. Other than this, yeah, I could do that. I could do this, and it's kind of half in, half not, dipping our toe in this idea of change. And therefore, people really do struggle to create that effectual change. Someone that's trying to lose weight because they've got a health diagnosis or a health scare is very, very different to that person that might lose a little bit of weight before holiday to look good or to feel good. They're very, very different reasons. They're just some of the examples, right? Shooting from the hip. Where is that ethical line drawn? I guess it comes down to two things: intent and consent. Is that controlling? Is that mind control? Is that repetition? Is that behaviour change designed to build and better someone or someone's person or their persona? Or is it intended to bind and to break them? Here's the truth though, we are all subject to conditioning. Trillions are spent all over the globe trying to control us. But equally, billions is also spent trying to undo and reverse the condition that we've already experienced. Think about the therapy industry or the self-improvement industry, or just any type of exploration that tries to understand the human condition and perhaps why we suffer. Trillions is spent and billions is spent the other way around. And guess what? About 95% of us are suggestible to a hypnotic state, a trance-like state. And when I say 95%, it's not that the other 5% are got Jedi mind tricks and they cannot be aroused into the suggestive state. It's oftentimes there's an impairment that stops them. But we are all able to go into this suggestible state. And this isn't because of gullibility. It just means that we are wired and our attention is focused to respond to suggestion and emotionally connect and engage with compelling ideas. The mind doesn't filter emotion from logic when engaged. It just absorbs it. If you don't learn to mind, or we don't learn to mind our own mind control, then there are lots of people that are happy to do it for us. And not all of them with our best interest at heart. But remember, with behaviour change in any kind, commit to the repetition, but also honour that emotional charge, because that's what cements the conditioning and the glue that holds it all together. And that's what can make change stick, as opposed to change that slips. Let me know in the comments below if I missed any when I was firing from the hip, when examples of where this technique may be used, or perhaps where you've been consciously conditioned or perhaps unconsciously controlled. And maybe in the next couple of videos or videos in the future, if there's an interest, I'll get into the dark arts a little bit more and draw up some topical examples, because it's literally fucking everywhere. Stay sharp between those ears, guard the gates of those temple. Best wishes to you.